the British established a system whereby it was not possible for Palestinians to peacefully oppose. There was no way they could oppose the Balfour policy. They could write petitions to the League of Nations, but they would be ignored. They could complain to the High Commissioner, but they would be ignored. There was no legislative assembly established because the Brits knew that if they established a legislature, it would reflecting the fact that the Palestinian Arabs, or the 90% of the population, they would not allow this policy to take effect. There would be no further Jewish emigration, etc. So it was in this context, especially with a massive increase of Jewish migrants coming into Palestine following events in Europe, with the rise of the Third Reich and the National Socialists, that the Palestinians resorted, if you like, to a strike, first of all, 6 month strike, and then violence. And this is when the High Commissioner imposed martial law, brought in, tens of thousands of troops from overseas, from different parts of the British Empire, and resorted to very violent counterinsurgency tactics, which they then imposed, that they'd learned from other parts of the empire, Ireland, probably from the Boer Wars, India, and elsewhere. Um, and Shamim has mentioned torture, things like waterboarding were quite commonplace, blowing up people's homes, so home demolitions. In fact, the home demolitions that Israel continues to use until today in the West Bank are based on British legislation, emergency legislation from the 1930s. There was summary justice. You had trials being undertaken in police stations by people who were not legally trained. And when the Chief Justice complained about this policy, he was removed or forced to take a generous pension, was how they got rid of him. There were people shot while trying to escape. And so this comes out from the archival documents, the Brits knowing and admitting internally that these things were happening. Um, Villages were put into cages, which we saw most graphically in Anne-Marie's film Palestine 36, left without any sustenance. The famous Al-Bassa massacre, which they call Al-Basma in the film Palestine 36, is actually something that really did happen. So they punished the villagers. So basically, you punish the community for the actions of an individual.